She rejected every man in town, until she saw the wealthy stranger cowboy Clara Bennett had lived in Willow Creek all her life. Willow Creek was one of those small towns where everyone knew everyone else's business, and where life moved slowly, like the creek that ran through the edge of town. She had grown up helping her parents in their small general store, sweeping the wooden floors, stacking jars of preserves, and learning to greet each customer with a smile. When her parents passed away, Clara inherited the store, and it had become both her home and her responsibility. She was proud of it, proud of the life she had built on her own, and proud of the independence she had maintained. At 25, Clara had a reputation in town. She was smart, capable, and kind, but she was also fiercely independent. She had turned down nearly every man who had shown interest in her over the years. From the shy young farmer who had left flowers on her doorstep, to the charming bank clerk who tried to impress her with fancy dinners, Clara had politely but firmly said no. People whispered about her at church, in the diner, and at the town fair, saying she was too picky, too proud, or simply too stubborn to ever settle down. But Clara knew what she wanted. She wanted respect, honesty, and someone who could see her for who she truly was, not for what she could give or how well she could keep a home. Life in Willow Creek was simple, but it was not always easy. The store demanded attention from dawn until dusk, especially during the busy harvest season. Clara stocked shelves, counted coins, and sometimes delivered goods to families who lived miles away on dirt roads. She loved her work because it connected her to the people of the town. She knew every face, every name, and every story. Mrs. Hargrove, who ran the bakery down the street, always asked her about the newest arrivals at the store. Mr. Thompson, the retired schoolteacher, liked to talk for hours about history and politics whenever he came in for his weekly groceries. Clara listened patiently, learning from everyone, but she also cherished her moments of quiet when the store was empty, and she could sit by the window, sip her coffee, and watch the sunlight glint off the creek. Despite her busy life, Clara sometimes felt a quiet loneliness. She noticed the couples walking hand in hand through the town square, the young families laughing on the playground, and the older couples sitting together on their porches. She wondered if she would ever find someone who understood her, someone who could match her independence without trying to change her. But Clara reminded herself that she would rather be alone than with someone who did not respect her or appreciate her for who she was.
This belief gave her strength, even if it made her seem distant or unapproachable to some.
Clara's mornings were her favorite part of the day. She would open the store at 7, letting in the cool morning air and the golden sunlight that poured through the front windows. The smell of fresh bread from the bakery next door mingled with the scent of coffee she brewed herself. She enjoyed arranging the jars of preserves in neat rows, carefully labeling each one, making the store look inviting. Regular customers would start trickling in, greeting her with familiar smiles and friendly chatter. Clara greeted them all warmly, enjoying the small moments that made her day feel full and connected. Outside the store, Willow Creek was alive with its own rhythm. The church bell rang every Sunday morning, calling the townspeople to service. Children played in the streets after school, their laughter echoing against the brick walls of the old buildings. Farmers drove their trucks into town to sell fresh produce, stopping to pick up supplies for their families. Clara enjoyed watching these everyday scenes from her front window. They reminded her of the steady, dependable life she had chosen, a life she had built with her own hands, and one she intended to keep on her own terms. Yet, even in her independence, Clara's heart was tender. She cared deeply for the people in her town, often helping them without anyone noticing. She would deliver groceries to the elderly who could not leave their homes, offer advice to younger women running small businesses, or quietly donate supplies to the local school. Clara did not seek recognition. She did these things because it felt right. It was her way of connecting to the town without compromising her own freedom. Despite the comfort of routine, Clara had grown wary of romantic attention. She had seen friends and neighbors marry for convenience or settle for partners who did not truly respect them. She wanted something different, something real. She wanted a man who could be her equal, someone who would appreciate her strength and not feel threatened by it. That desire had led to years of rejection and whispers, but Clara did not mind. She knew that waiting for the right person was better than settling for the wrong one. On a warm summer morning, Clara was arranging fresh produce in the store when she heard a new voice outside. She looked up to see a man she had never seen before, tipping his hat as he approached the front door. He carried himself with quiet confidence, and there was a calm, self-assured air about him that made Clara pause. He smiled politely and greeted her with a friendly, "Good morning." Clara returned the greeting, curious but cautious. She had learned long ago not to trust appearances. The man introduced himself as Marcus, a rancher from out of town who had come to Willow Creek to explore some land he was interested in purchasing. He was polite, respectful, and spoke with a sincerity that Clara found unusual. He asked about the store, the town, and its people, listening attentively to her answers. Clara, who was used to men trying to impress her or charm her, noticed the difference immediately. Marcus seemed genuinely interested in her words, not just in her. As the conversation continued, Clara felt a spark of curiosity she had not felt in a long time. She found herself smiling more easily, laughing at his lighthearted comments and even sharing little stories about her life in Willow Creek. Marcus listened without judgment, asking thoughtful questions and showing a genuine interest in her experiences. For the first time in years, Clara felt the possibility of connection without pressure, and it was a feeling both strange and exciting. By the time Marcus left the store, Clara realized that something had shifted within her. She was still cautious, still wary of the gossip and the expectations of the town, but she also felt a small, fluttering hope that maybe, just maybe, this stranger could be different. He had not asked her to change, had not tried to impress her with money or status, and had shown respect for her independence. For Clara, that was a rare and precious quality. The days that followed were filled with quiet reflection. Clara continued her routines, serving her customers, arranging her shelves, and watching the life of Willow Creek unfold outside her window. But she found herself thinking about Marcus more often than she expected. She wondered about his ranch, his life, and what had brought him to her town. She reminded herself to stay cautious, to protect her heart, and to maintain the independence that was so important to her. Yet a small part of her could not help but hope for something more, a friendship, a connection, or perhaps even the beginning of something she had long denied herself. Clara Bennett, the woman who had rejected every man in Willow Creek, felt the first stirrings of curiosity and possibility. She was still independent, still strong, and still cautious. But for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to imagine that maybe her life could include someone who respected her, challenged her, and shared her values. And that thought, gentle as it was, made the long, quiet days of Willow Creek feel just a little brighter. The arrival of Marcus in Willow Creek did not go unnoticed. Word traveled fast in a small town where strangers were rare, and newcomers always sparked curiosity. People whispered in the diner, at the church, and outside the post office, speculating about the man who had appeared seemingly out of nowhere. He was different from the usual visitors to the town. Tall, confident, with quiet eyes that seemed to observe more than they spoke, Marcus carried himself with a calm ease that drew attention without demanding it. Clara first noticed the town's reaction while standing behind the counter of her store. Mrs. Hargrove, the bakery owner, had stopped in for some sugar and flour, and practically buzzed with excitement. "Have you seen him yet, Clara?" Mrs. Hargrove asked, her eyes sparkling. "The new rancher? He's quite something." Clara raised an eyebrow, accustomed to the gossip. "I met him this morning," she said casually, though she felt her heart skip a beat at the memory. "He seems polite enough. I didn't notice anything special."
"Oh, Clara, Mrs.
Hargrove whispered conspiratorially, leaning closer.
Polite?
"He's more than polite. He has a presence about him. The kind that makes you want to listen when he talks." Clara chuckled and returned to arranging shelves. She didn't dismiss Mrs. Hargrove, but she didn't allow herself to be swept away by the excitement either. She had learned long ago that appearances could be deceiving, and she intended to see the man for who he truly was before forming any opinion. Marcus, for his part, had quickly begun to explore the town. He had come with the purpose of purchasing some land, but he found himself drawn to Willow Creek in ways he had not anticipated. The town was small, yes, but it had a charm that made him pause and take notice. The people were genuine, polite, and warm. They greeted him with smiles, waved when they saw him on the main street, and offered assistance when he asked. Marcus appreciated the simplicity of life here, something he had missed in the busy cities where he had lived before. He returned to Clara's store that very afternoon. This time, he carried a small basket of fresh fruits from the farm he had been visiting outside town. He had not come to impress her, nor had he planned to, but he wanted to share something simple, a gesture of friendliness. "Good afternoon, Miss Bennet," he said, tipping his hat slightly. "I thought you might enjoy some fresh apples. They're from my farm. Well, one of them at least." Clara accepted the basket, surprised by his thoughtfulness. "Thank you, Marcus." "That's very kind of you. They smell wonderful." They spent the next several minutes talking about the apples, their uses in pies and jams, and the best ways to store them. It was a simple conversation, but Clara noticed how attentively Marcus listened, how his eyes brightened when she shared small tips, and how his voice carried a calm sincerity that was hard to ignore. Over the next week, Marcus made a habit of visiting the store each day. Sometimes he came to ask questions about the town, other times to exchange a friendly greeting. Clara was always polite, always cautious, but she found herself looking forward to his visits more than she expected. He never rushed her, never pried into her personal life, and never made her feel pressured. That respect for her independence, small as it seemed, was different from anything she had experienced before. The townspeople, however, were quick to notice. They watched from the diner and the post office as Marcus lingered by the counter, chatting quietly with Clara. Whispers spread like wildfire. Some were admiring, some skeptical, but all agreed that something unusual was happening. People began to speculate about whether Clara, the woman who had rejected so many, might finally have met someone who could capture her interest. Clara, though aware of the whispers, refused to let them sway her. She had always followed her own path, and she had no intention of changing that now. Yet she could not deny the growing curiosity she felt toward Marcus. There was something in the way he spoke, the way he carried himself, that felt genuine. He did not try to impress her with wealth, charm, or flashy words. He simply listened, engaged, and treated her as an equal. That, more than anything, intrigued her. One afternoon, Marcus asked Clara if she would accompany him on a short walk to the edge of town where his property was located. He wanted her opinion on the land, as he valued someone with local knowledge. Clara hesitated at first, wary of stepping out of her routine. But curiosity won over caution, and she agreed. The walk was quiet and comfortable. The sun was warm, the breeze gentle, and the fields stretched out in golden waves under the clear sky. Marcus spoke about his plans for the land, how he hoped to preserve its natural beauty, improve the soil, and care for the animals he would raise there. Clara listened attentively, impressed by the thought and care he had already put into his plans. She offered small suggestions based on her knowledge of the area, and Marcus welcomed each one with genuine interest. During the walk, they also shared stories of their lives. Clara spoke of her parents, the store, and her years growing up in Willow Creek. Marcus shared memories of his family, the challenges of managing a ranch, and the lessons he had learned along the way. They found common ground in their respect for hard work, independence, and honesty. For Clara, it was refreshing to meet someone who understood that life was not just about appearances or status, but about effort, integrity, and respect. By the time they returned to town, Clara felt a strange sense of ease she had not experienced in years. Marcus had not rushed her, had not tried to charm her with words alone, and had not made her feel pressured. Yet he had managed to make her laugh, think, and reflect, all at the same time. She realized that her interest in him was growing, though she still reminded herself to remain cautious. The next few days were filled with small, thoughtful gestures. Marcus would leave a basket of vegetables at the store, check in on Clara when he passed by, or offer a helping hand when she needed it. Each act was simple, yet Clara noticed the care behind them. He was not flashy or boastful, but he was considerate and attentive in a way that felt sincere. Meanwhile, the town continued to buzz with speculation. People whispered about Clara's reactions, noting the subtle changes in her demeanor, the small smiles, the lingering glances, the lighter step she seemed to take when she walked past the store. Some townspeople expressed concern, thinking she might be giving in too quickly, while others quietly admired the possibility of Clara finding someone who matched her strength and independence. Despite the attention, Clara remained grounded. She focused on her work, her routines, and her responsibilities, while allowing herself small moments of curiosity about Marcus. She was careful to separate the gossip from her own feelings, recognizing that her judgment was what mattered most. She knew that true connection could not be built on appearances, rumors, or social expectations. It had to come from respect, understanding, and shared values. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills and the sky turned shades of pink and orange, Clara found herself closing the store alone. She reflected on the past week, the changes she had noticed within herself, and the stranger who had quietly entered her life. Marcus had not demanded anything from her, yet he had managed to capture her attention in ways no one else had. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to imagine the possibility of friendship, partnership, or even something deeper, but only if it grew naturally, on her terms. As she locked the door and stepped out into the cool evening air, Clara felt a mix of anticipation and caution. Willow Creek was a small town, and life here was predictable in many ways, but her world had shifted slightly with Marcus's arrival. She did not know what the future held, but she felt a flicker of hope and curiosity, and that was enough to make her days feel just a little brighter, a little fuller, and a little more exciting than before. In those quiet moments, Clara realized that her life, which she had carefully built with independence and self-respect, could also accommodate connection, trust, and genuine companionship. She did not need to change who she was, nor did she need to give up her freedom. Instead, she could welcome someone into her life who respected her, valued her, and shared her principles. And for Clara, that realization was both powerful and exhilarating. Over the next few weeks, Clara found herself noticing Marcus more often, even when he wasn't around. There was something about the way he moved, the calmness in his voice, and the genuine interest he showed in people that made her think about him at unexpected times. She had long believed that she didn't need anyone else to be happy, and she still did. But Marcus had a way of making her feel like her independence could coexist with companionship, and that was a new and intriguing thought. Marcus, for his part, continued his quiet efforts to get to know Clara. He never rushed or pressured her. Instead, he made small gestures that showed thoughtfulness and respect. He would stop by the store on his way back from the ranch, sometimes with fresh eggs, other times with flowers or a basket of herbs. Each gift was simple, practical, and sincere, never extravagant or flashy. Clara appreciated the thought behind the gestures, but she refused to let them influence her feelings. She wanted to know the man himself, not what he could give her. One Friday afternoon, Marcus invited Clara to the town's weekly farmers market. It was a casual outing, nothing formal or fancy. Clara hesitated at first, unsure if she wanted to draw attention to herself, knowing the gossip in Willow Creek could be relentless. But Marcus's easy smile and gentle manner convinced her to accept. "No pressure," he said, as he extended his hand. "Just a walk through the market. You can leave whenever you like." The market was lively, full of colorful stalls, fresh produce, and the warm chatter of the townspeople. Marcus and Clara walked side by side, stopping occasionally to look at handmade crafts or to sample fresh berries. Marcus asked Clara for her opinion on the different produce, listening attentively as she shared tips she had learned from years of working at the store. Her knowledge impressed him, and she appreciated that he genuinely valued her expertise. As they walked, they talked about more personal topics. Clara shared stories of her childhood, her parents' lessons, and her dreams for the store. Marcus shared experiences from his life on the ranch, the challenges he had faced managing land and livestock, and the values his family had instilled in him. The conversation flowed easily, and Clara felt herself relaxing in a way she hadn't felt with anyone in years. She realized that she was enjoying his company without feeling pressured or judged, and that was a revelation. The townspeople noticed them together, of course. Some whispered approvingly, hoping Clara had finally met someone worthy of her. Others were skeptical, wondering if she would truly allow herself to be close to anyone, Clara, however, ignored the gossip. She had always lived her life on her own terms, and she had no intention of letting others dictate her feelings. She focused instead on the moment, on the easy conversation, and on the genuine kindness Marcus displayed. After the market, Marcus suggested they take a short walk along the creek. The water glimmered in the late afternoon sun, and the gentle sound of flowing water created a peaceful atmosphere. They walked quietly for a few minutes, enjoying the serenity of the setting. Then, Marcus turned to Clara. "I hope I'm not being too forward," he said softly. "I just enjoy spending time with you. Your perspective, your kindness. It's rare to find someone like you." Clara felt a warmth in her chest. She had been cautious for so long, expecting men to be interested only in appearances, money, or social standing. Marcus, however, seemed genuinely interested in her for who she was. She smiled gently. "Thank you, Marcus. I appreciate that. I enjoy our time together as well." From that day, their meetings became more frequent. Sometimes they worked together at the store, organizing shelves or delivering goods. Other times they explored the countryside, sharing small picnics or walking along dirt roads lined with wild flowers. Each interaction was simple, but it deepened their connection. Clara found herself laughing more, feeling lighter, and opening up in ways she hadn't anticipated. Despite her growing fondness for Marcus, Clara remained cautious. It tested him subtly, asking questions about his past relationships, his intentions, and his understanding of independence. She wanted to be certain that he would respect her boundaries, her choices, and her life. Marcus met each test with patience, honesty, and thoughtfulness. He did not become defensive or evasive. Instead, he listened and shared his perspective with clarity and sincerity. Clara found this honesty refreshing, and it strengthened her trust in him. One evening, as the sun set over the hills, Marcus invited Clara to his ranch for a simple dinner. He wanted her to see where he lived and understand the responsibilities he carried. Clara accepted, curious but careful. The ranch was beautiful, with wide fields, sturdy barns, and animals grazing peacefully. Marcus explained how he managed the land, cared for the animals, and planned for the future. Clara was impressed by his dedication, his work ethic, and the respect he showed for nature. During dinner, they talked about hopes and dreams. Clara shared her vision for expanding the store, introducing new products, and supporting the local community. Marcus spoke of his desire to maintain the land, improve his ranching practices, and contribute positively to the area. They discovered shared values: hard work, respect for tradition, and a desire to make a meaningful impact. Clara realized that their connection was not just about attraction. It was built on mutual understanding and aligned principles. As the evening progressed, Marcus and Clara grew more comfortable with each other. They shared stories, joked lightly, and even discussed their fears and challenges. Clara admitted that she had often felt pressure from the town to marry or settle down, and how she had resisted because she wanted to make her own choices. Marcus listened without judgment, acknowledging her feelings and expressing admiration for her independence. Clara felt a deep sense of relief and appreciation. Here was someone who did not want to change her, but wanted to understand her. Over the following weeks, their bond strengthened. Marcus continued to show thoughtfulness through small acts of kindness, helping with store deliveries, offering advice when Clara faced challenges, and simply spending time with her in ways that were meaningful, but never overwhelming. Clara, in turn, found herself more open to connection. She laughed more, felt more at ease, and even began to anticipate Marcus's visits with a quiet excitement. Yet, Clara never lost her sense of caution. She knew that genuine connection required patience, understanding, and trust. She refused to let the whispers of the town influence her feelings. She focused on the moments she shared with Marcus, the conversations that mattered, and the mutual respect that formed the foundation of their relationship. One afternoon, as they sat by the creek watching the sunlight dance on the water, Marcus turned to Clara. "I enjoy our time together," he said softly. "I value your independence, your strength, and your honesty. I don't want to rush anything. I just want to be someone you can trust and rely on." Clara felt her heart swell. She had long feared that anyone who came close might try to change her, control her, or demand more than she was willing to give. Marcus, however, offered only respect, patience, and genuine interest. She smiled, feeling a sense of hope and possibility. I appreciate that, Marcus. I value the time we spend together as well. Their relationship, though still in its early stages, continued to grow in a natural, unforced way. Clara began to realize that she could be independent and strong while also allowing herself to form a connection with someone who respected her. She no longer felt that companionship meant losing herself. Instead, it could mean sharing life with someone who valued her for who she truly was. By the end of the season, Clara and Marcus had established a quiet rhythm together, visiting the store, exploring the countryside, and sharing thoughtful conversations. Each day brought new understanding, small gestures of care, and moments of laughter. Clara had not expected to find someone who could match her independence and values, but Marcus had shown her that genuine connection was possible when built on respect, honesty, and patience. Clara Bennett, the woman who had once rejected every man in town, found herself opening her heart in ways she had long resisted. She had not lost her independence, nor had she abandoned her principles. Instead, she had discovered that it was possible to be strong, self-reliant, and cautious, while also allowing herself to form a bond with someone who genuinely understood and respected her. As the weeks passed, Clara and Marcus's bond continued to grow, but life in Willow Creek was never without its complications. The town, small and close-knit, had a way of inserting itself into everyone's affairs. Clara, who had always valued her independence, felt the weight of curious eyes and whispered conversations. People watched her every move with Marcus, noting her smiles, her laughter, and the time she spent at his ranch or walking through the countryside with him. While Clara ignored most of it, she couldn't help but feel the quiet pressure of expectations pressing in from all sides. One afternoon, as she closed the store for the day, Mrs. Day Hargrove arrived, practically bouncing with excitement. "Clara, everyone is talking," she exclaimed. "Have you noticed how close you've become to Marcus? Some people think you're practically courting him already." Clara smiled politely, though inwardly she felt a flicker of irritation.
Mrs. Hargrove, we're just spending time together.
"There's no need to exaggerate." "Oh, Clara, you worry too much." "Mrs." Hargrove laughed. "It's natural for people to notice. But I think it's sweet. You two seem to understand each other." Clara nodded, though she couldn't shake a lingering unease. She valued the connection she had with Marcus, but she had never sought approval from the town. She reminded herself that her choices were hers alone, and that no one else had the right to influence how she lived her life. The situation became more complicated when an old suitor, Daniel, returned to Willow Creek. Daniel had been a childhood friend and a young man who had once hoped to marry Clara. Though she had turned him down years ago, he had never forgotten her. Now, seeing Clara spending time with Marcus, he began trying again, offering help at the store, bringing gifts, and speaking of old memories they had shared. Clara felt a mix of emotions. She had never held romantic feelings for Daniel, but part of her felt sympathy for him. He was kind and earnest, though naive about what she truly wanted. She gently but firmly reminded him that her feelings had not changed, and that her heart was not available for the asking. Yet Daniel's presence stirred unease, and Clara realized that even though she was drawn to Marcus, she would need clarity about her own emotions before moving forward. Meanwhile, Marcus faced his own challenges. A sudden financial setback at his ranch caused him worry. A storm had damaged a barn and some of the fencing, threatening the safety of his livestock. He worked tirelessly to repair the damage, but it was exhausting and stressful. Marcus, who had always prided himself on being capable and independent, now faced a challenge that tested both his resilience and his patience. Clara noticed his struggle and felt a deep sympathy. She wanted to help, but she also knew that she could not impose or overstep. Instead, she offered practical assistance when asked, delivering supplies, helping organize repairs, or simply providing encouragement. Marcus appreciated her support, recognizing that she offered help because she cared, not because she wanted to control the situation. Their bond deepened as they faced this challenge together, navigating difficulties with patience, respect, and mutual trust. Despite these external and internal challenges, Clara and Marcus continued to spend time together. They explored the countryside, shared quiet evenings at the ranch, and discussed their hopes for the future. Each day brought new understanding, small acts of kindness, and moments of laughter. Yet Clara could not ignore the subtle tension building in the town. People's whispers, Daniel's persistence, and the occasional skeptical glance reminded her that her choices were always under scrutiny. One evening, Marcus invited Clara to walk along the edge of his property where the land overlooked a gently rolling valley. The sun was low in the sky, casting a warm golden light over the fields. Clara could sense that something was troubling Marcus, and she waited patiently for him to speak. "I want to be honest with you, Clara," Marcus began, his voice steady but tinged with concern. "The storm caused more damage than I expected, and it's going to take a lot of work and time to fix everything. I don't want you to feel obligated to help, but I also want you to know what I'm dealing with."
Clara nodded, feeling a mixture of admiration and concern.
"Marcus, you've handled this with courage and determination. I want to help, but I also respect your independence. Tell me what you need and I'll be here in the way you find most useful." Their conversation that evening reflected the depth of their growing relationship. They were learning to communicate openly, to express concerns without judgment, and to support one another while maintaining their individuality. Clara realized that real connection was not about avoiding challenges, but about facing them together with honesty and respect. The next challenge came in the form of misunderstanding. One afternoon, Marcus made a decision regarding his ranch without consulting Clara, thinking it was the practical choice. When Clara discovered this, she felt a pang of disappointment and exclusion. She valued transparency and partnership, and the thought that he had acted independently on a matter they had discussed made her question whether he truly understood her needs. When Marcus returned from a day at the ranch, Clara confronted him gently. "Marcus, I appreciate everything you're doing, but I felt a little left out when I learned about the decision you made regarding the fencing. I thought we agreed to discuss these things together." Marcus listened carefully, his expression serious. "You're right, Clara. I didn't consider how it would make you feel. I was trying to be practical, but I see now that I should have spoken with you first. I didn't mean to exclude you." Their conversation was honest and constructive. They discussed expectations, communication, and the importance of involving each other in decisions that affected both their lives. Clara realized that disagreements and misunderstandings were part of any relationship, but what mattered was how they handled them. Marcus's willingness to listen, acknowledge his mistake, and adjust his approach strengthened her trust and admiration for him. Through these challenges, Clara began to understand that love and connection were not about perfection. They were about patience, understanding, and the ability to face difficulties together. Marcus's actions showed her that he valued not only her independence, but also her opinions, her feelings, and her perspective. She began to feel more secure in their bond, confident that their relationship could withstand challenges without compromising who they were as individuals. Despite the difficulties, Clara also found joy and comfort in the small moments: a shared picnic by the creek, a quiet evening watching the stars, or a simple conversation about their day became meaningful rituals. Each interaction reinforced the connection between them, reminding Clara that true partnership involved both support and respect. As the season shifted from summer to early autumn, Clara reflected on the changes in her life. She had once believed that independence and companionship were incompatible, that choosing one meant sacrificing the other. But her experiences with Marcus had shown her otherwise. It was possible to maintain her sense of self, her routines, and her independence, while also forming a deep and meaningful bond with someone who respected and valued her. The challenges they faced together, financial setbacks, misunderstandings, and external pressures, had tested their relationship but also strengthened it. Clara realized that love was not about avoiding difficulty, but about navigating it with patience, trust, and mutual respect. She felt a growing sense of hope and anticipation for the future, knowing that the foundation they had built was strong enough to support whatever challenges might come next. Clara Bennett, the woman who had once rejected every man in town, now found herself facing choices she had never imagined. She had discovered that genuine connection required courage, openness, and the willingness to be vulnerable. She had learned that independence did not mean isolation, and that companionship could enhance rather than diminish her strength. As she closed the store one crisp autumn evening, Clara felt a quiet sense of satisfaction. The path ahead was not without challenges, but it was filled with possibility, trust, and hope. She knew that with Marcus by her side, they could face whatever came their way, together, yet independently, each respecting the other's strengths and values. And in that moment, Clara understood that real connection was worth the effort, worth the patience, and worth the trust. She had learned that love was not about perfection or grand gestures, but about respect, honesty, and shared commitment to facing life's trials hand in hand. The weeks turned into months, and Willow Creek gradually settled into its usual rhythm. Life went on in the small town, but for Clara Bennett, things felt quietly different. She still ran her store with care and dedication, still greeted every customer with warmth, and still enjoyed the calm routines that had always defined her life. Yet now, she carried a sense of anticipation, a feeling that life could be both independent and shared at the same time. Marcus had become a part of her world, not as a burden, not as someone who demanded change, but as a partner, a friend, and a presence she looked forward to each day. The financial setbacks on Marcus's ranch had been addressed, slowly but surely. The damaged barn had been repaired, the fencing replaced, and the livestock tended with care. Marcus's resilience impressed Clara, but what impressed her even more was the way he had included her in the process. He valued her opinion, appreciated her practical help, and treated her contributions as meaningful, not optional. The shared effort brought them closer together, reinforcing the trust and respect that had been steadily building between them. Clara noticed that the town had begun to shift its perception as well. The gossip had quieted somewhat, replaced by admiration and quiet approval. People spoke of Marcus and Clara with respect, acknowledging the careful way they had navigated their relationship. The whispers that had once made Clara uneasy now felt distant, irrelevant even. She had learned that the opinions of others could never outweigh her own judgment, and she carried that lesson with confidence. Despite the progress, there were still moments that tested them. One afternoon, a misunderstanding arose that could have caused serious tension. Marcus had made a decision regarding the sale of part of his property to a neighboring rancher. He thought it was a practical move to improve his ranch's operations, but he had not discussed it with Clara beforehand. When she learned of it, she felt a flicker of hurt and confusion. She valued transparency and partnership, and the idea that he had acted without consulting her made her question whether their bond was fully equal. When Marcus returned that evening, Clara met him outside the store. The sun was low, casting long shadows across the dusty street. She looked at him with calm but serious eyes.
Marcus, I need to understand why you made the decision about the property without including me. We've been working to build trust, and this feels like it bypassed that.
Marcus listened intently, his face thoughtful.
You're right, Clara. I should have spoken with you.
I was focused on what I thought was practical, but I see now that I failed to consider your perspective. I didn't mean to hurt or exclude you. Clara felt a sense of relief. His honesty and willingness to acknowledge his mistake reaffirmed her trust. They discussed the situation openly, sharing their thoughts and expectations. By the time the conversation ended, they had reached a mutual understanding, strengthening their partnership rather than weakening it. Clara realized that disagreements and misunderstandings were not signs of failure, but opportunities to learn, grow, and deepen the connection. The turning point in their relationship came during a crisp autumn evening. Marcus had invited Clara to his ranch for a simple dinner under the open sky. Lanterns hung from the porch, casting a warm glow, while a soft breeze rustled the leaves of the trees surrounding the property. They shared a meal of fresh bread, roasted vegetables, and meat from the ranch, enjoying the simplicity and quiet intimacy of the moment. After dinner, they walked along the edge of the fields, watching the sun set over the distant hills. Marcus stopped and turned to Clara, his expression gentle but serious.
Clara, he said, I've never met anyone like you. Your independence, your kindness, your strength, they inspire me.
I don't want to rush anything, but I also don't want to hide how much I care about you.
Clara felt her heart warm.
She had spent years rejecting men who did not understand her, who did not respect her choices, or who tried to change her. Marcus, however, was different. He had shown patience, understanding, and sincerity from the very beginning. She smiled, feeling a deep sense of trust and affection.
Marcus, I care about you too. I've never felt such a connection with anyone before.
I value how patient and honest you've been, and I trust you.
From that moment, their relationship grew more secure. They continued to spend time together in simple, meaningful ways, working at the ranch, exploring the countryside, or sharing quiet evenings at Clara's store. Each moment reinforced their bond, showing them both that love and companionship could coexist with independence, respect, and personal growth. One afternoon, Marcus surprised Clara with a small, handmade bench by the creek near her store. He had crafted it himself, intending it as a place where they could sit, talk, and watch the town go by. Clara was touched not by the object itself, but by the thoughtfulness behind it. She realized that Marcus had not come to change her life or her routines, but to add comfort, joy, and support in ways that mattered to her. The seasons changed, bringing cooler winds and golden leaves. Clara and Marcus had established a rhythm together, balancing work, companionship, and independence. They celebrated small victories, the successful harvest, repaired barns, and improvements to the store, and comforted each other during challenges, whether personal or practical. Each shared experience strengthened their bond, building a foundation of trust, respect, and affection. By the time winter approached, Clara felt a quiet contentment she had never known before. She had maintained her independence, run her store with diligence, and navigated the pressures of small-town life. Yet she had also allowed herself to form a deep, meaningful connection with someone who truly understood and respected her. She had discovered that love was not about losing oneself, but about finding someone who valued and celebrated who you were. One evening, as the first snowflakes began to fall, Marcus invited Clara for a walk through the lightly dusted fields near his ranch. The air was crisp and cold, but their hands intertwined, keeping each other warm. They walked in silence for a while, enjoying the quiet beauty of the winter landscape. Then Marcus stopped, turning to Clara with a soft smile. "Clara," he said, "these past months with you have been the most meaningful of my life. I admire your strength, your independence, and your heart. I want to face whatever comes next together, with respect, honesty, and partnership. I don't want to rush, but I want you to know how much you mean to me." Clara felt tears well up in her eyes, not of sadness, but of deep, quiet joy. She had spent years believing that independence and companionship were incompatible. Yet here she stood, holding hands with someone who had shown her that they could exist together harmoniously. "Marcus," she whispered, "I feel the same. I trust you, and I care about you deeply. We can face anything together, as equals, supporting and respecting each other." From that day forward, Clara and Marcus embraced a new chapter in their lives. Their relationship was no longer tentative or cautious. It was built on shared experiences, honest communication, and mutual respect. The town of Willow Creek watched with admiration as they continued their partnership, both independent and connected, each supporting the other while maintaining their individuality. Clara often reflected on how far she had come. She had rejected countless suitors, resisted pressure, and followed her own path. Yet she had also allowed herself to be open to connection, trust, and companionship. She had discovered that love did not diminish her strength, it enhanced it, offering support, understanding, and shared joy. Together, Clara and Marcus faced life's challenges with patience and cooperation. They celebrated successes with laughter and gratitude, and navigated difficulties with honesty and mutual respect. Their partnership became a model of balance, demonstrating that independence and love need not be opposing forces, but could coexist in harmony when built on trust, care, and shared values. As Clara locked the store one quiet evening, she paused to look at the bench by the creek that Marcus had made. She smiled, thinking of the journey that had brought them to this point. The patience, the tests, the misunderstandings, and the quiet moments of connection that had strengthened their bond. She felt a sense of fulfillment and hope, knowing that she had found someone who truly understood her, valued her, and stood beside her as an equal. And in that peaceful moment, with the snow gently falling and the town settling into its familiar rhythm, Clara Bennett understood something profound. True companionship was not about losing independence, yielding to expectation, or changing who you were. It was about trust, respect, patience, and the courage to open your heart to someone who genuinely valued and honored you. Marcus stood beside her hand in hand, and she realized that she had finally found the balance she had long sought. Strength and independence, love and connection, freedom and trust, all existing together in harmony. Clara smiled, feeling the quiet joy of knowing that her life had grown richer not because she had given up who she was, but because she had found someone willing to walk beside her, not ahead or behind, but equally through every challenge and every joy that lay ahead.